How's it going, everybody? Josh KI6NAZ here, back again in the shack because, and also wearing a sweet sweater, because I've got a new radio. This is the first time you're seeing this, at least the first time this has existed in the United States. This is the new Xiegu X6100. This radio has had more videos made on what it potentially is than any radio I've seen in a long time. There's a lot of people talking about this radio. This is a 10-watt QRP radio that will handle the HF bands, which means this runs 160 meters through 6 meters, which is nice to have. This was thought by many to be roughly the size of a G-Sock, which was an accessory kind of tablet-y thing that would connect to other Xiegu radios. I can say that no, it is much smaller than that. It is more reminiscent of an X5100, which is another portable QRP radio. 5 watts on the internal 3,000 milliamp hour battery, 10 watts when connected to a remote battery or an external power source of some kind. I don't want to talk to you that much. I want to go right to the tabletop so you can see what this is all about, and we'll go through the capabilities and features and how to use it. Well, we have a whole host of things to cover, so let's get started. We'll turn this radio on. We're going to do that power draw test right up front so you guys know what the receive draw is and the transmit draw. I have this connected to a battery off to my left, and it's connected to a little power meter here in the middle, which is showing
draw and receive is 0.81 amps. Couldn't turn the screen off to make that any better.
Not sure exactly what's causing that. We'll dive into that as we go, but we'll also do a transmitter test right now. All right, I've got the radio connected to a Morse code key, and we're in the CW mode right now, and I'll key up. And that takes us to about 2.45 amps on draw. You are supplied a microphone in the box with a keypad. It's a similar mic that you would get on a G90. So this is now in AM mode, and we'll key up here. About 2.35 amps. This is still into a dummy load, so don't worry, we're not transmitting erroneously. Talking about what comes in the box, you get a handy mic and the connector cable. You get a USB-A to USB-C connector. You get a wall plug that actually has a 12 volt or an AC, sorry, that has a DC plug. This notes that it outputs 0.6 amps. Output is 12 volt, 1,000 milliamps. And then it comes with a power lead for building your own. So if you want to put Andersons on this, you can do that. All right, here's another test. We're going to do power output. First, we have the radio connected to a power supply providing 13.8 volts. So let's key up. We're looking for 10 watts output. And there is the 10 watts we're looking for. Something I've learned about this production model, and again, this is the first production model, when you're on plugged in, and you key up, you get, about 10 watts. Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu, getting into a dummy load. You have to have the radio on to charge. Again, this is something, this version of the radio, I don't believe this is the final, where you have to have it plugged in to charge the battery. So when I disconnect the battery, or the plug, so it goes off, now when I key up, I'm getting less watts out, 2 to 4 watts, depending on how charged this battery is, which this battery is pretty low right now. So let me leave it on and let it charge up again, and then we'll do another test. Okay, so I want to make sure I get this power test done, and I've had some complexities here that I want to talk about. So I've got the power removed from the, I've got the lead removed, so we're running off the batteries. The batteries should be fully charged right now. I'm in AM, actually I'm in CW right now, let's go to AM, and I'm going to key up. I'm getting the 4 watts output off of batteries, okay, on AM. And I've tested this with Morse 2 when I'm running my key, and I get about 4 watts. Here's my problem though, and again, this is, we got to put this into perspective here. This is the first production. There could be some hardware differences. I don't know completely, but what I've found is that I can get the 4 watts on a full charge. It will quickly start to dip down to 2. And what I've noticed is that
we will start to see the battery self-drain. And I will come back to this a day or two later, and the battery will be dead. So it's not the same as I've normally expected with the X6100. Again, I'm lining this up with it possibly being the production model. Don't know, but that's just what I'm seeing. And so far, you know, we're getting the 4 watts out.
Here's a size comparison: the 6100 against the Xiegu X5100. The 6100 is just a bit proud on each end, and then if you stack them up next to each other, you can see that the 6100 is shorter. It's also looks like a bit skinnier. Controls on the top, PTT is the same. The band switches have moved to the left, whereas they're here on the right on the Xiegu, and then the volume control knob is actually on the face of the radio now. People liked the X5100 because the controls were flush. Everything is rubber, and the VFO is this flush little nubbin that you rotate. Now the controls are a bit more proud, right? You have a volume, squelch, and your RF gain, as well as you have this multi-control button that becomes important later. In its stock configuration, it just changes your power settings. But you use this for some of the menu controls that are on the bottom. And then they actually have like a VFO knob here now that you can actually go in and control. The good news is, if you're already familiar with the X5100, and to a little lesser extent, kind of a bit, the G90, then the controls are very much the same. If you want to change bands, you just click the button here on the top and it change. If you want to go from the different modes, single sideband, CW, and AM, FM. And yes, this has FM, so now you can do FM on 6 meters, which is something people wanted when they removed it from the X5100. Now note here, when you're changing to single sideband, you now have a control that will say upper sideband dig, lower sideband dig. So you actually have digital control. Now you can set that to the band, or as we'll find out here maybe in a bit, we'll see if we can actually kick this into digital control mode with the USB-C connectors on the side. On the top, you now have buttons with names, and then on the outside in screen printing, you have other names. So you have an A and B set. This is where you change your A channel with your B channel, and if you hold it down, you will set your B channel to the same as the A channel. So you can split them, but you can see nothing much is different. But if I move this, and now I go back to B, you can see it jumps back and forth. You have a preamp and attenuator. So single press engages the preamp, turns it off, hold it down, turns on the attenuator. You can see it right there. You have an ATU setting, so this is turning on automatic tuning, and if you hold it down, it will engage the tuner. So if we turn that on, the ATU light enables, hold it down, it will go through a tuning cycle, and then you're back out. I leave the ATU off because we don't need it attached to a dummy load. All right, VM is for your VFO versus memory if you play around with that. AGC control is for literally the AGC if you want to set it to fast, slow, or auto. So, no, this one, there you go. Fast, auto, or just off. And then you can go back to slow. And if you hold down the AGC button, you will engage split mode. Now, fast and menu, I couldn't get the menu button to do anything, and it's likely because this is like a first gen production prototype. However, if I click it, then I go from fast scan to slower scan. So fast scan, we can just dive around here. And note that when you scan in fast scan, it doesn't drop the lower order numbers. You still have to go in there and like get them sorted out. So if you want them to be even, you kind of have to go in there, suss that out, and now you can scan a little bit faster with the VFO. All right, so a couple of things that I like what they did here. They added these soft touch buttons on the front, which changes the buttons down here in the bottom. This is not a touch screen, but you can use these nondescript soft buttons to go into whatever that is. So if I go to Gen, that's just your general radio settings. So I go to Radio 1 settings. That's where you actually get a nice little pop-up. This is very reminiscent of the Yaesu menu system on like the FTDX10, etc. And that's where you can set things like your AGC settings, your power settings, your mic selector. It's using the built-in mic right now, which is that little hole right there.
So you'd have to change that. So you use the multi-wheel, the multi-dial to spin around the different menu settings. But when you go to a menu setting that you want to change, like mic select, you use the plus or the minus to select what that is. So in this case, we're going to use the handle mic, which I guess they mean is this, you know, the actual hand mic. And that's where you can change mic gain, line in level, line out, monitor level. So line out, that's actually pretty nice. Line in level is pretty nice too. So that means you can adjust this in radio to get the right levels you need for digital modes. PTT mode, what do they got there? Toggle. Oh, cool. So it's a, so let's try that. We're on the, remember, we're on a dummy load, so don't at me here. Well, close. Is it doing it? Toggle. Yeah, I wanted to toggle. Oh well, guess you can't do that on the hand mic. Oh hey, there's a feature, band stack. I'm assuming that means you can go all frequencies with this and transmit. Remember, I'm on a dummy load here. Let's go outside the ham band. Oh buddy. Yeah, so let's do that, but let's go back to ham bands. Nope, it don't care. Okay, don't know what that means. Maybe it's this band stack. If I go back in here, all band. Oh yeah, it's literally giving me like shortwave bands too when I do that. That's kind of cool. If you're a shortwave listener, you may like that. Keep in mind, again, everybody, I am using what is a demo unit. This is not what you're going to get if you've pre-ordered this. So if I didn't mention it, this radio is selling for $639 off of Radioddity.com, and I'll post the link in the description. And there was a first run of pre-orders that sold out in 2 hours. They're now on a second batch of pre-orders, and it goes for $639, and it also comes with a backpack if you buy it on pre-order. All right, going down the list here, let's go to display settings. This allows you to change the references, dB up or down, for your actual waterfalls or your whatever displays you've got, because this has got a waterfall and then kind of a pan adapter as well. So let's go back. There we go. System settings. Not bringing up anything. Okay, so for a second or two for you, almost a week for me, I learned a lot of things in that time about this radio, particularly the one I'm holding in my hands, which is the first production roll-off of this radio, the X6100. As I have been told, there is slightly different hardware for cat controlling the radio over USB-C, and the firmware that's running on here is also slightly different than what you will all be getting that pre-ordered this radio. So first things first, I will be getting the production model of this radio. This one is going to go back. So that means that there are a couple of things in this video that I showed that are not working due to either firmware or the hardware. So there will be follow-on videos. That's the first thing. I will mention what those items are that are not functioning in the way they should. Again, likely because of the firmware or hardware that you won't see in a production model. And that is the SWR plot that we're familiar with the X6100 and the G90, right? For those of you that want to see that. The modem application, which allow like PSK31 decoding, digital mode decoding, that kind of thing. There are some radio deep menu settings that are not available when you click the button. It doesn't take you to that location. And last but not least, while the USB-C is working perfectly fine for doing audio over USB-C, I see it just fine on WSJTX and other digital modes. What's not working is the cat control to change the radio's frequency and also key the radio, which is kind of going to be fundamental if you're going to use this for digital mode operation. Now, I will note I am making no apologies for Xiegu or Radioddity. I'm just merely passing on information that I'm getting. It makes sense to me that all of those things will work because it works for the G90 and it works for the X6100. I won't be surprised at all if the radio that shows up very soon will do all this out of the box. So I'm not really worried. So treat this more like a first look, and there will definitely be an update video coming to rectify any differences. Memory edit. Okay, cool. You've got some memories that you can edit here. If you want to save the VFO, you can do that.
Under app, we now have modem and SWR scan. So let's go to modem. This would be one of those features that is not in this production unit, but should be, as promised, on the final production unit that you all will see. Modem is not activated yet. This is likely software that's going to allow you to do decoding of PSK31, possibly FT8. All right, a wonderful feature everybody liked on the X6100 and the G90 is this SWR scan. This too is a feature not on this production unit, but should be on the production model that you all see. At least that's what is promised. All right, so under key type, you have manual, auto left, auto right. You have key speed, which you can adjust. I'll leave it at 15. Iambic, you can go iambic B or straight, or actually just iambic B or A. You can set your tone and your tone level. Under message, you can pre-cache messages that you can then play out at any time if you're running Morse code, which I don't have set up right now. Okay, under DFN, this is where you get your noise reducer, noise blanker, and the different controls for it for depth, width, and level. So I have a very noisy environment right now on 40 meters. So let's engage noise reducer and noise blanker and see if we can find some signals.
5-9 here. Thanks a lot for being there for me, Ben. K0DME, K21ILH, I'll break with you. Get back to net with a good call. Yeah, get back to net with a good call. It's over to you, Maryline 77. All right, and Dano, you've got the loudest signal I've heard all night. Wow. 77. Kilo 10, X-ray Alpha, DM, you're up. W4DWS.
Something that definitely deserves a mention, this noise reducer is greatly improved over the X5105 here. And the G90, I think this is also kind of a step up. This is very good. You can... Really loud noise floor. Engage the noise reducer on 40, and it greatly suppresses the noise. But I can actually, it feels like it is actually pulling out some of those voices. It's actually really, I'm surprised. This is actually really, really good. Now under the DFL menu, that's where you can get in here and actually play with your filter swings if you want to do a shift. And you can increase the bandwidth if you need to, or move it around. How big can we get this? No, it's just a shift. So you get a 2700 hertz bandwidth here on the first filter. Second filter is 2400. This is what you'd use for single sideband. And then 3, it's reduced further. So let's leave it on 2400 and we'll go back to the general.
It works. You know, you hear me, Peter hears me, Wendy hears me.
That's pretty good.
I don't know how much.
All right, let's walk around the sides because you've got I/O on the sides here. So on one side you have your DC input, your IQ out. So this carries over the IQ out that the other Xiegu radios all have and share. There's also a BNC connector on that side for your antenna. There is a kickstand on each side. I will note that is one thing that they didn't go as hard in the kickstand space. I feel that the kickstands are a bit better on the X5105. These are okay. They are detented. There is a ball detent. You can feel it when it hits the end for holding it open and keeping it closed. They both have a detent. They're the same width and thickness. I just feel like the X5105 is a little bit better. But it's not that big a deal. All right, rounding out this side, which is kind of where the exciting stuff is, you have your mic connector. You have an ACC connection, which my understanding is that this port will be used to connect to the XPA125B amp. So they're going to make a special cable that will connect from this to the back of the amp and allow you to drive that amp and get 100 watts out. This is your key for Morse code, your speaker and your phone's key. Now these two ports, this is your host and dev port. All right, so I'm guessing that the dev port here is what's going to be used for upgrading software if you're not using the card. That's possibly my guess though, because you had to go through a firmware process where you were flashing via a Cerritos, a terminal application to flash the firmware on. But this guy says host. So host makes me think that if I plug into this while it's connected to my computer, I'm going to see it as a device, and we may potentially get cat control and audio out of this for doing digital modes. And that's something I'm going to try on a subsequent video here, but I'm very excited about that. Again, you already saw the top and then the bottom. Both sides feel like they have a bit of heat sink on, not a ton. It does get a bit warm if it's sitting receiving, but I don't think that is too warm. At the same time, I haven't had it for very long, so I can't really qualify it. I'm going to transmit and make some, see if I can make some QSOs with this and see how we do, and if it warms up much more than that. But so far, it seems okay. And here's in kickstand mode, kind of how it sits. I'll put the X6100 next to it. And you can see the X5105 is a little flatter with the angle, whereas the 6100 is a little bit higher tilt. That could be good for you, don't know, but just keep that in mind. A fun note, when you plug the DC connection in, watch the microphone, you get an indicator on the mic that it's charging because the green light is always illuminated when the radio is on. Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
Alpha Zulu. Did I get that right?
QSL. The name here is Josh. Josh, I'm in Cerritos, California, talking to you on 10 watts.
Okay, Josh. And whereabouts in California again?
I'm in Cerritos. I'm southeast of Los Angeles.
Okay, maybe things will clear up a little bit. It almost sounded like you were saying Reno, but we know that's in Nevada. So anyway, Josh, so thanks for coming back. Conditions are a little weird. Actually, I think I should be talking to the East Coast real well about now, but I think most of those folks are down for the count tonight. so good to hear a station just a little bit south. We're in Sisters, Oregon. Let me know how you're copying me, and I'll give you a signal report.
QSL, the Sisters, Oregon. I am, you are a 5959 here in Cerritos, California. That is 20 miles east of Los Angeles.
Oh, did you say Rico?
Negative. Cerritos, California.
Oh, got it. Okay, Josh. Very good. Gotcha now. So what are you running, Josh? I want to see if are you giving me more than 100 watts, or you're going barefoot tonight?
Negative. 10 watts. 10 QRP.
Well, congratulations, Josh. 10 watts. Holy smokes! No wonder. Well, doggone it. Yeah, you're doing really well for that. I wasn't even looking at the meter because I was having to get my ear close to the speaker, but still, that's very impressive. What, you got a little QRP rig, and what do you got for an antenna, Josh?
Well, that was pretty awesome. QRP, I mean, he has a pretty nice setup, and he's running 1200 watts, which is probably why I'm getting him at a 5.9, but I'll take a 5. I don't know if it was a 5 on my receive strength, if it was a straight 5.5. Regardless, though, that's pretty good. Hopefully that got a little pile up going for him. And you can see the waterfall right there. Pretty nice. Now, I will note, I think this was the ALC that was popping up, and it was showing a little red bar there. I did have the mic gain tweaked. This doesn't have a compressor. Normally, I'd have a compressor turned on if I was going to do single sideband with a QRP radio like this. Speaking of that, we ran the QSO, and it's a bit warm, not too warm. I appreciate I let it sit for a couple minutes after the QSO, but let's do a quick gun check here. Looks like the left side of the radio is going to be the highest, and that got up to about 99.3 degrees Fahrenheit. But
it's not that bad. You can easily hold it. It's not too hot to hold. It feels like lukewarm hot cocoa in your hand. Let's do a bottom check on it because that was just sitting up against the... So 100 degrees directly on the bottom of the unit, which is not bad. That was for 5-minute QSO back and forth, not bad. Time will tell, you know. I will go on the record as saying that my X6100 will overheat if left in direct sunlight on a summit when doing a summit SOTA activation. That happened to me a couple of times. I am obviously in my shack right now, so I can't really give you a good indicator on whether this will have any kind of heating trouble. Seemed okay, and you know, it's gonna vary. A favorite for a great many people is Morse Code key clicks and the sounding of said key clicks. So I've got a secondary microphone right here. And basically it's the sound of the relays clicking. People are really curious about in a Morse Code radio. So I'm gonna put the microphone right here underneath it, and I'm gonna rattle off a couple of little characters. Going too fast for myself. So that is my call sign, and that is the relays. So yeah, it does have some audible key clicks. Some of you do not like that. I don't know the relays that are in this unit, and going through the radio menus, I'm not finding something where you can extend those key clicks and hold them open like you can on other radios. So again, it has a audible key click there, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, so what are my thoughts on the X6100 as it sits today? The one that I have right here, right? Well, I'm gonna withhold my final judgment for when I have a final production unit in my hand, of course, with a firmware that's more commensurate to what you all will experience as well. Here are my thoughts, though, on what I have in front of me, and what I think will work, because straight up, all that stuff works on the other radios, so why wouldn't it work on this? The big add-ons to this radio are the screen, nice looking screen, and the USB-C control here for cat control digital, one cable to do digital, right? That's the big upgrades, why someone would consider this over an X5105. The form factor, of course, is different too. It's got the bigger knobs, actual knobs versus that little flat flush unit that's on the X5105. So what are my thoughts? Well, it's a solid upgrade to an X5105 in that case. It is a good upgrade. It is offering new things that is not available in the X5105. X5105 came out, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, about 3.5, 4 years ago. Would this be an upgrade in step based off of newer features that hams are looking for today? It has a micro CF card for recording. It has one cable for cat control. These are all things you're going to expect to see in radios, even QRP radios, from pretty much all brands at this point going forward. It also has a pretty nice looking screen. Sure, it feels like an appropriate incremental upgrade, capitalizing on the things that hams want to see in QRP radios. I am very careful with what I'm saying right now, and I hope you all appreciate what I am saying here. This radio, what I'm holding, is not the final model. It looks just like it. I'm told that this is the first production unit, and so that the firmware on here is also not production. So there are things that are just not working, so I can't show them to you yet. And when I get the final version, I will update this video with what works. I'm assuming everything that is written on the website is going to work. So with that said, I'm going to say wait and see. If you went ahead and pre-ordered one, I'm not that worried about it. I really am not. Again, I feel like those features that are not working on this unit will work. My confidence level is 75 to 95%, right? Unless something crazy happens. So that's where I will put this. I will put this right down, and I will withhold the rest of my thoughts until I have the final production model. I'm relatively confident that it's all going to work out and everything's fine, because again, the older radios have all this stuff. It's the new features like USB-C and the CF card
recorder that I'm a little bit more interested in seeing it in its final form. So hopefully that was helpful. I guess you can look forward to a future video, a couple of videos at least, because there are some other things I want to talk about that probably deserve their own video. Just a quick how-to to help people out. The only thing I can kind of say is that the kickstand is a little, that's the only downside. It's, you know, the kickstand on the X6100 was one of my favorite things about that radio, actually. I really like the kickstands. So this is just a bit of not an upgrade. Maybe this will be somewhat worked out in the next edition. So anyway, tune in for that. Make sure you hit subscribe so that you'll know when I post a video on the next or the final production X5100. If you enjoyed this or I didn't cover something you want to know about the X5100, give me a thumbs up. Just first and foremost, right? Go ahead and do that now. And hit subscribe so you make sure you get the next video. But post your questions below and I will do my best to answer them all. I will literally write them all down and work through them like a punch list on the next video. Thanks so much for watching the Ham Radio Crash Course. I'm Josh, Ki6NAZ 73.